Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to stand here with all of you, my colleagues, my friends, and supporters to rally in support of ACA 1. As a former mayor of Winters and board member of regional housing transportation agencies, I have seen firsthand the deterioration of our once world-class infrastructure. As the former Assembly Committee Chair of Local Government for the past 6 years, I have heard about deteriorating buildings, decrepit community facilities, and our extreme lack of affordable housing. But I also know firsthand that every single neighborhood, community, city, and county in California is different. That is why ACA 1 is so important. ACA 1 is targeted to help the urgent needs of local communities to increase the supply of affordable housing and supportive housing for our working families and our vulnerable communities. ACA 1 also addresses public infrastructure challenges, including funding for libraries, parks, hospitals, fire stations, broadband, and more. This will empower local communities to take action at the local level to improve their economies, their neighborhoods, and their residents' quality of life. Let's take a quick look at this near-miss list. Take your time to look at that. By reducing the local vote threshold for approval of local measures from 2/3 to 55%, this measure will put power back into the hands of local government and local voters. Let me be very, very clear. You can't build housing without roads, sewers, and fire stations. This is why we are focusing on housing and the infrastructure it supports. I want to acknowledge and thank all of my colleagues and all of the supporters that are here today. We have an impressive 47 legislators who have already co-authored this bill, and we're working toward getting an initiative across the finish line this year. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm going to list a few of our stakeholders that are here today. Statewide cities and counties and special districts, housing groups, labor and construction unions, public safety, transportation, water and conservation, parks and open space, local business groups, and more. So we will start. We will now welcome to the dais Assembly Member Buffy Wicks and Senator Scott Wiener. So Scott, would you like to start?
Thank you. And first of all, I want to really, from the bottom of my heart, thank Assemblymember Aguiar-Curry for not just her leadership, but her tenacity in not giving up on this measure. This is not the first time that she has introduced this constitutional amendment. Hopefully it'll be the last time, because we'll get it done. And she has absolutely persevered and prioritized this constitutional amendment, which is about the future of the state of California and whether California is going to continue to be a fully functional world-class economy that has the housing and the infrastructure that we so desperately need, or whether we're going to continue to just sit by while our housing situation deteriorates and while our infrastructure falls apart. I say the former. We need to move forward and move past this terrible era where we have allowed our infrastructure to atrophy. This fundamentally is about ending a situation where California has absolutely kneecapped local communities' ability to meet the basic needs of California residents. This is about empowering our local communities to build the housing that we need to address homelessness, to make sure we do not have another wave of homelessness as low-income renters are evicted, and to make sure that we have housing for all income levels. We used to invest aggressively in housing for low-income people. We do not do that at the level that we used to do it, and lo and behold, we have unprecedented levels of homelessness and displacement in the state of California. We used to have absolutely world-class infrastructure. This is the state that built the BART system. And now we struggle to fund public transportation. We look around our state and the number of Californians who do not have safe drinking water is appalling. And that can be fixed. It's a matter of investing to fix it. We look at the challenges that we have around climate adaptation or lack of adaptation with wildfires and sea level rise, which impacts our ability to build housing, impacts so many aspects of life and puts so much of our state at risk. And we know how to address it, but we have prevented our local communities from actually putting together the resources to make those infrastructure improvements. And so this constitutional amendment is a chance to hit the reset button and to move past a very ugly era in California history where we were told by right-wing extremists that government can't do anything right, the government can't solve anything, and we should just throw up our hands. Let's stop throwing up our hands. Let's stop with this anti-democratic nonsense where 65% of residents can be in favor of something, and that's somehow not good enough. We must pass this constitutional amendment, and let's commit to this fight. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Buffy Wicks. I represent the beautiful East Bay, Oakland, Berkeley, Richmond area. I'm the chair of the Housing Committee here in the Assembly, along with my counterpart in the Senate, who's chair of the Housing Committee in the Senate, Scott Wiener, and our fantastic majority leader, Cecilia Aguiar-Curry, who has been dogged on this issue. I just want to thank you so much. We are going to get this over the finish line this time. You know, as many of you know, I approach policymaking first and foremost as a mom. That's how I approach everything, really. And for those of you that are parents, you understand that. And for me, with regard to this, it's looking at their future. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. And what kind of California do I want them to grow up in? What kind of California do I want them to have children in? A California with a continuation of 174,000 or more homeless people on the streets? A California with decrepit streets and leaking pipes and infrastructure that does not support the innovation and the beauty that this state actually is? Or do I want them to grow up in a California that embodies the best of this nation, that can solve problems, that has a government that works for people, that has local government, state government, federal government coming together to say, we can actually solve big problems here. We can do that. And I say this on the housing crisis, if we've put people on the moon, we can solve our housing crisis here in California. So let's build that California for them. Let's build an equitable, progressive California that solves problems, that shows that government can solve problems for people. And this issue on the threshold number is particularly important to me because in the city of Berkeley, the city that I represent, we recently sought to pass a $650 million bond for affordable housing. We got 59%. And so in a democracy, one would say, oh, that passed, but not with this threshold. So I ask you, last time I checked, in a democracy, majority ruled. But this is antiquated, backwards, right-wing policy that, as my colleague said here, throw up our hands. We can't do it. It's not at 2/3. Well, that time is over. And this is a modest proposal to bring it down to a 55% threshold. So this makes common sense. It allows our local voters who want to be a part of the solution to activate their own democratic participation to do that. And that's what this ballot measure is about. I'm committed to this. We have to put all ideas on the table. And none of us have a monopoly on all the smart ideas. It's going to take all of us working together to solve this problem. And our local leaders, our state leaders, our constituents, our advocates, our labor unions, our public health officials, everyone across the board is coming together to solve this problem. So we're going to get this done this year. This is going to go on the ballot next year. And I truly believe the voters will support this because they want that bright future for their children too. And with that, I'm very happy and proud to introduce our next speaker, the new head of the state building trades, Chris Hannan.
Good morning, California. I'd like to start off by thanking Leader Aguiar-Curry for bringing ACA 1 forward. I want to thank the other co-authors, and I want to announce today that the 500,000 members of the affiliates of the State Building and Construction Trades Council of California are coming on as a co-sponsor. ACA 1 is going to empower communities. Our members are ready to engage their communities. Our members are really ready to build the essential needs of their communities. We're here to make California a better place. California is not a better place when we're struggling to find housing, we're struggling to have adequate healthcare facilities and adequate infrastructure to take care of the needs of Californians. Our members are proud to join union firefighters in California as sponsors of ACA 1, and we're ready to fight to move it forward and be successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris, for your comments. Next, we'll have up Brian Rice, President of the California Professional Firefighters. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Well, we got to do one thing for sure. We're not going to try and do ACA 1 again. Let's get it done this time.
Yeah.
So my name's Brian Rice. I'm a firefighter. I did my career here in Sacramento. I'm the president of the California Professional Firefighters. We represent almost 35,000 firefighters in the state. I can tell you firsthand that the stresses on local government over the past probably 25 years and the inability of having a fair chance to increase their revenue, we've been strangled. And ACA 1 is at least a step to fix that. And one of the things that I've seen, I'll go right to the heart of the matter, in a small fire district right up Highway 49, just between Auburn and Nevada City, the Higgins Fire Protection District. They had a measure on the ballot that would have increased their staffing, would have upgraded their infrastructure, would have actually allowed them to provide a safe fire protection service for the citizens of the Higgins Fire District. And that measure passed, excuse me, that measure got 58% of the vote. It didn't pass. And here's the ramifications of that. They had to lay off half of their workforce, and they closed 1 out of 3 fire stations. And the way we operate as firefighters, we meet every challenge possible. But I am here to tell you that the citizens of Higgins on that day, when they could only muster 58%, they lost fire protection and emergency medical protection, and nothing that we can do or say as firefighters is going to bridge that gap. This is a new California, and this law was put in place and installed in a different time. There are 38 million people in the state of California, and many of them depend on local government, and I'm trying not to swear. But this really gets to me that we're standing here talking about lowering a threshold to 55% instead of 50% plus 1. That's democracy. But we're going to do 55%. It's fair. It keeps people from doing frivolous things with our tax structure. But the day is now. We can't keep doing what we're doing today and be governed by a small few. And I saw them out here yesterday. And quite frankly, what I heard was BS. The threshold right now is not representative. Since when has 66% been having to reach a majority to get there? We're being ruled by 33% or 34%. It's time to change that. ACA 1 changes that, and I am grateful to our Assembly member, Aguiar-Curry, for doing this again and again. And it's BS. In this building, we need to get this through this time so that we can go to the ballot and the communities in California can decide how they want to do this. And I am confident that the voters not only would support this, but would support the growth going forward. So I'm thankful and honored to be standing here. It's time that we put the BS away and get this done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Brian. We're now going to welcome Frank Lima, General Secretary Treasurer for the International Association of Firefighters. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Appreciate your leadership and that of the legislator. My name is Frank Lima. I'm the General Secretary Treasurer for our International, representing hundreds of thousands of members across the United States and Canada. And we are here, like President Rice said, from the California Professional Firefighters, standing in solidarity with our state association here in support of ACA 1. Firefighter safety, when firefighters are safe, the community's safe. As President Biden always says, how do you make firefighters safer? You hire more firefighters. How do you hire more firefighters? You increase the budget, especially in fire protection districts in rural areas. Cuts. Our fire departments and fire protection districts and throughout the state are suffering from budget cuts. In Sonoma County, in 2020, the voters voted by a percentage of 65% to support increased staffing and disaster relief services for brush fires. And that failed. And that is not right. There's people suffering because of that. That's like the Dodgers beating the Giants 5-4 and saying, hey, that game doesn't count, you didn't win. For all of our Dodger fans out there. But on a serious note, in the last month, I was in Newark, New Jersey, where 2 firefighters died, and a large contributing factor was an engine company was closed near the fire, caused longer response times. We have 2 CAL FIRE members that died in a brush fire 2 weeks ago out near Palm Springs area, and their funerals are next week. I just got back from Lahaina and the devastating fires with our Maui firefighters in that community. And what I can tell you is you have an infrastructure that did not work. There were no water in the hydrants. You know, these kind of things can't happen, and the only thing that will help it is passing measures like this. So ACA 1 gives the people the voice, you know, and we stand, like I said, in solidarity with the building trades, the operating engineers, affordable housing, and critical infrastructure. So thank you for your support.
I want to thank you, Frank, for taking your time to come out and support us. We really appreciate it. Amy Fisher,
be here today next to Assemblymember Aguiar-Curry, our champion on ACA 1, Senator Scott Wiener, Assemblymember Buffy Wicks, and all of those that are going to come forward to champion this effort. Thank you to my labor brothers and sisters. I'm here to speak about the role that this measure will play in helping to address the affordable housing crisis and the homelessness crisis in the state of California. NPH is the collective voice of affordable housing in the Bay Area. We represent thousands of individuals and organizations, affordable housing developers, advocates, community leaders, and businesses, all people who care about making sure that everyone has a safe, affordable place to live, and no one should be living on the streets. That's not acceptable for our state of California. That's not acceptable for anywhere. So we need more tools, more resources, new strategies, and so that is why we are here, and we are proud as a supporter of ACA 1. This measure is a game changer. It will generate billions of dollars for affordable housing and homeless services and give voters the freedom to decide how their community can respond to the need for more affordable homes. This is critical to solving our housing shortage and our homelessness crisis. Without more investment, we're only building about 14% of new affordable homes that are needed every year. 14%. That is not okay. And our numbers for homelessness keep climbing. 170,000 people. That is unacceptable. And that doesn't count all the people that are one paycheck away, that are hidden homeless, that are living doubled up, tripled up in circumstances that are not healthy and don't represent the strength of this great state of California. We can do better. We need to give local governments the tools they need to meet their housing obligations. They need to build 1.2 million affordable housing units over the next decade, and without serious funding options, we are going to fall short. This bill would put the power to solve these issues in the hands of California voters. We already know what kind of investments will make a difference, and we need the significant investment. In order to do this, we need to level the playing field and ensure that our democracy is working. As others have said so well before me, it is just not fair when 35% get to decide what happens in our local communities. 65% is too high of a threshold. It doesn't make sense. And we can't expect our cities and our counties to solve the crisis with hands tied behind our back. ACA 1 will fix this and bring the power back to local voters and local communities, making sure that voters are represented, making sure that local governments have the tools we need. And we know that voters want accountability. They want oversight. This measure will bring that to them. We know that voters want to see their interests represented in these measures, and that will happen. It's not that willy-nilly bonds are going to get placed on the ballot. It is a process in every community to determine and assess what's going to have the highest impact. ACA 1 will produce a more democratic and more effective ballot process to address affordable housing and homeless needs that the cities and the counties are facing. How many of us know that this is a kitchen table conversation? This is an everyday issue. It hits the heart of our communities and who we are. So our coalition of affordable housing and homeless organizations, we are proud to stand by you. We are proud to win this fight with you, Assembly Speaker pro-Temp Aguiar-Curry, and all of you here today. Let's get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you very much, Amy. We will now introduce, I'd like to welcome is Bruce Gibson, San Luis Obispo Supervisor, California State Association of Counties First Vice President. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Assembly Member. I am Bruce Gibson, 2nd District Supervisor for the County of San Luis Obispo, and proud to stand here today with Assembly Member Aguiar-Curry to support ACA 1. CSAC is the voice of California's 58 counties, and we have long supported ACA 1. Counties have seen firsthand how the outdated two-thirds supermajority has thwarted the will of significant majorities of our voters and our residents, and the impacts are real. The two-thirds threshold has throttled crucial housing and infrastructure projects that we need to solve critical problems, and we've heard that from our speakers today in organized labor and the nonprofit sector with affordable housing and homelessness. I'm going to give you an example from San Luis Obispo County. This impact is real. In 2016, San Luis Obispo County voters voted on a half-cent sales tax measure that would have put us in the position of being a self-help county. We got 66.3% approval of that, and it failed. With that huge majority voting in favor, that failure cost us. It cost us $25 million a year in the sales tax revenue. It cost us almost another $1 million a year of augmented gas tax, and it has cost us tens of millions of dollars in grant funds that we would otherwise have qualified for if we were a self-help county. And I want to emphasize that ACA 1 is not a radical idea. It simply aligns the voter threshold at 55% with that which has been in place for the schools for quite some time. And we don't hear complaints about that, and the schools have been successful. That revised threshold would make a difference. In November of 2022, schools got 72% of their bond measures passed, but only 40% of local government obligation bond measures met the outdated two-thirds threshold. And that means that local projects didn't get done. You've got examples on the poster board here. CSAC understands that ACA 1 is carefully crafted to preserve and protect the will of an overwhelming majority of California voters. Most importantly, the resultant revenue can only be used for the specific projects approved by the voters. And ACA 1 provides key transparency and accountability measures which counties strongly support. And thus, the revenue approved under ACA 1 can't and won't be used for other uses. CSAC respectfully requests that the legislature and the governor pass and sign ACA 1 so it can get to the ballot where the voters can decide. That's a fundamentally important point. The voters of California need to give voice to this proposed change, and I am confident that they will support it. Thank you, Assemblymember Aguiar-Curry, for being here and for leading on this important effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much for making the trip from San Luis Obispo. We greatly appreciate it. Now we'd like to welcome Michael Pimentel, Executive Director for the California Transit Association. Welcome, Michael.
Good morning. I'm Michael Pimentel, Executive Director of the California Transit Association, and I'm here today representing my 230 member organizations, including 85 transit and rail agencies in the state of California, as well as the regional entities that steer transportation land use decisions, and more than 100 manufacturers and suppliers. And I'm pleased to stand with Speaker pro-Temp Aguiar-Curry and her colleagues who have co-authored this measure to show California transit industry support for ACA 1 and to voice our appreciation to the Speaker pro-Temp for her longtime advocacy on behalf of California's local governments. To us, ACA 1 presents a simple proposition. Allow Californians in communities across the state to determine their future and their priority investments by clearing the way for more voter-approved self-help measures. We see this as a matter of self-determination. Now, over the last decades, these measures have been foundational to the development and expansion of the state's largest public transit systems, from LA Metro to SF BART. Together, these measures have helped create the second largest and second most productive public transportation network in the country, generating significant economic activity, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and expanding jobs and access to opportunity. Now, as California transit agencies navigate an uncertain future and endeavor to lean into the transition to zero-emission technologies and deliver a more equitable system, we know that these measures will continue to be essential. What's more, in the discussions that took place this year with the legislature on transit agencies' fiscal challenges, we received strong encouragement to pursue additional self-help measures to achieve self-sufficiency and to address our long-term needs. We see ACA 1 as being entirely consistent with that message and direction, and an important step forward. And for those reasons, we again support this measure. We applaud Speaker pro-Temp Aguiar-Curry for her leadership and look forward to working with her and the legislature to pass ACA 1 this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I can't do this alone, but what I have behind me are some really powerful men and women that are co-authors on our ACA 1, and I would like to introduce them to say a few words as well. First of all, I'd like to introduce Assemblymember Blanca Rubio with a few words.
Thank you, Assembly Speaker pro-Temp and my dear friend Cecilia Aguiar-Curry for inviting me to speak on the importance of ACA 1. I am a former teacher and school board member. I feel like I have to point that out because we talked about the differences between what we do for our schools and what we do for our cities, and I think they should be aligned. This constitutional amendment will allow cities, counties, and special districts the opportunity to tackle the present issue this body so often prioritizes, but we struggle to accomplish. Affordable housing, rising homelessness populations, and climate change are all complexly intertwined issues which this measure will provide a tool to address. California needs to build a minimum of 180,000 new housing units. Let me say that again, 180,000 new housing units every year, including 80,000 affordable low-income units, just to meet the demand. Meanwhile, climate change has an estimated $50 billion cost by the year of 2050, which can't be met without existing funding mechanisms. I do not take measures like this lightly. However, thanks to the Assemblywoman's leadership, this will provide critical funding mechanisms to tackle the state's most pressing issues with extensive local control and support of our constituents. Thank you to all the members here today in support, and to this groundbreaking measure. And again, thank you to Assemblymember Aguiar-Curry for her leadership and my colleagues for supporting this measure. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome Assemblymember Matt Haney. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you so much, Speaker Pro Tem. This is an extraordinary coalition of Californians who know that we cannot face the biggest challenges that we have as a state with the status quo in place. We have labor, we have housing advocates, we have local government, we have state government. And what we know is the two biggest challenges and the two biggest needs that we face as a state are climate change and homelessness. And right now, we cannot meet those challenges with this barrier in place that is tying our hands here at the state, that's tying the hands of cities and counties across the state who want nothing more to be able to do their part to build the transit infrastructure, to build the climate resilience, to create the renewable energy that we need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and address climate change. They want nothing more to be able to build the housing that we need to get people off of the street. The over 1 million units of housing that we need over the next 10 years, half of those have to be affordable. And there is no way that we can do that if local governments and cities and counties and local residents are going to the ballot and they have to get the absurd threshold of 66% in order to fund these measures. And what will happen if we don't change this is that we won't be able to confront these needs. We will continue to see climate change get worse. We will continue to see homelessness get worse and rents go up. But even if we try to do it another way, the other way is actually more hurtful and harmful to our residents. Parcel taxes, sales taxes, all sorts of things that are not the best way to finance our approaches to these challenges. I'm a very proud joint author, and I will say, Speaker Pro Tem, you did a good job making this number one, ACA 1, because this is without a doubt the most important thing, most important measure that we will fund, or that we will vote on this year. Let's get it done so we can confront these challenges that our residents are facing. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember. I'd like to now introduce Senator Susan Rubio, and please welcome us.
Good morning. I'm State Senator Susan Rubio, representing Southern California, but I'm so proud to be here. First of all, giving thanks to our wonderful leader in this measure, our Speaker Pro Tem, Cecilia Aguiar-Curry, who's been an advocate along with all these wonderful people that stand behind us. And I think we all bring our personal experience to the table as it pertains to legislating here in this big, beautiful white building. And I come from local government. I was a local council member for 13 years, and I can tell you without a doubt that the number one issue was funding for local projects that were going to produce affordable housing units, infrastructure, helping our firefighters, our police. And so as local governments, we can only do so much. And I often say, I always put my hat on as a local council member, sometimes before I think as a state senator. But because of that, I know how dire the situation is. And in 2019, I created a local housing trust because I just knew that our cities were struggling. Homeless was on the rise, not just in my community, everyone else's communities. And so in 2019, when I created this housing trust, 22 cities have now joined. That just gives you a sense of the urgency for not just my city of Bowen Park, but every other city in the San Gabriel Valley where I come from. 23 as of last month, 23 local cities trying to find solutions to how to fund these amazing projects that are needed and so vital for the survival of our communities. So as of last month, we've already built 600 housing affordable units, and we're building 400 more. However, the funding is running out. This is little communities putting their little pockets of money together. It is not enough it's not enough to solve the crisis that we have on our hands. And on top of that, we were able to house 150 homeless individuals. We've now transitioned them into permanent housing, 47 homeless individuals. But that's just an example of what can get done in a small way. But if we do ACA 1, that is a big example of how we get things done together in collaboration with our firefighters, our local agencies, our counties, everyone holding hands together, making sure that the funding is there. Every time we build housing, it touches everything else: infrastructure, transportation, services, and every agency needs our help right now. So I'm a proud co-author now, and I hope that everyone votes for this. I just want to add, because I know that usually there's a fear of Sacramento changing things. So I just want to be very clear that this is about local jobs, local control, local investments, and housing the most vulnerable among us. So I am a proud co-author. Thank you. And thank you to everyone behind me, the coalition. And I'm just happy to move forward and pass this ACA. Thank you. Thank you.
I failed to introduce somebody that's really important to me, because as a mayor, when I was mayor, I was very involved with the League of California Cities, and they've always been behind me on anything I've ever really proposed. So I'd like to welcome to the podium Executive Director Carolyn McIntyre.
And I'm posing as Carolyn Coleman today. It's great to be here, and thank you, Speaker Pro Tem Aguiar-Curry. Still a mayor to us, always a mayor to us, and we appreciate your efforts so much. You know, it's not every day that the League of California Cities can stand here with labor, with counties, with the chairs of the respective housing committees, and all before the same thing. You've heard all the speakers that have gone before me today talk about the importance of more investment, greater investment at the local level if we are going to produce and have the kinds of communities we all say we want in California. This is not a measure asking for money. I do want greater investment from the state in housing and infrastructure in our communities, but this is a measure about putting a new tool in the toolkits for those local governments who are trying to produce more and better and higher quality housing for all the residents in their communities. You just heard the speaker before me talk about, this is a measure that's about local decision making, it's about local jobs, and it's about improving our local communities. I say we let the citizens decide what democracy looks like in their communities by getting this measure out to them. So again, I want to thank the Speaker Pro Tem for all of her efforts. I also want to say thank you to my second Vice President, Lisa Middleton, Council Mayor from Palm Springs, who is here with us today, for leading these efforts so much as well. Thank you. Let's get this done.
I have a few extra Assembly members that would like to do they get a 10-second spiel here. So Assembly Member Lee, as well as Assembly Member Hart, would you like to join us at the podium?
So I'm Assemblymember Alex Lee, representing Santa Clara and Alameda counties. I'm proudly a joint author on ACA 1, following the leadership of our Speaker Pro Tem. So I'm very glad to be joining this. You heard ad nauseum why we need to do this, but I'll reiterate for our context just something why I'm supporting this. 100 years ago, this country believed in a grand public works program to rebuild this country, rebuild its economy. All the roads, bridges, water infrastructure, schools, and yes, housing we still rely on to this day is basically 100 years old. It's time that we take the first step to reinvest in our infrastructure and rebuild that California and that America to follow for all of our inhabitants. So we must pass ACA 1, and Cecilia knows I ask her like 5 times every month. I say, when are we voting on this? When are we voting on this? So let's get this done this year. Thank you.
And I'm Assemblymember Greg Hart, representing Santa Barbara and South San Luis Obispo counties. And I just simply want to say, for all of the reasons that you've already heard, this is a common sense solution to a critical issue. All we need to do is all of us go back inside, convene session, vote to put this issue in front of the voters, because I have complete confidence that the citizens of California understand this issue, want to have the chance to vote, and will pass ACA 1. Thank you. In 2024.
And I'd like to acknowledge we have Assemblymember Jackson here as well. He's decided to keep his thoughts to himself, which is fine. And I hope I didn't miss anyone else. But I do want to welcome Assemblymember Chris Ward to the podium to help us close this up. Thank you all for attending.
Brief, because I see the sun line starting to encroach here, and we know that means press conference time is done. But like Cecilia, I came here from local government. I was on the San Diego City Council and came to the legislature in 2020. And one of the last actions that I had the opportunity to do was to put forward a bold measure in the city of San Diego, a $900 million locally sourced housing bond that otherwise would have helped provide 7,500 units for those experiencing homelessness. And the voters agreed, but not enough. At 57%, we fell short of what we needed to achieve passage with all the disinformation out there. And here we are 3 years later with a worsening homelessness crisis on our streets that we could be actually building with good local union jobs, the necessary solutions to be able to meet that challenge. And so you can add that to the list. Just like Supervisor Gibson had mentioned here too, this is a representative sample of what we have tried to do through local governments to support our infrastructure, to support housing, to support fire and flood facilities. And it probably could extend well beyond the camera line as well. And it wouldn't even include all the other measures that cities would like to be able to do, but for they know what the current threshold is. So we need to help them, and ACA 1 is a very smart and clever and not unprecedented idea to be able to help cities do just that. Like the supervisor said, this aligns the voting threshold in the Constitution with school districts. So at 55%, we say if it's good enough for our school facilities, it's good enough for everything in our community. And the take-home message for everybody here is this. We are on the precipice of actually being able to correct this wrong and putting this measure before the voters so they can decide. But to do that, if you in our home communities are tired of the housing crisis that we are unable to solve with local resources, if you want your city and your region to do more to diversify transit and improve our roads, if you're nervous about wildfires and flood threats that are increasingly becoming a threat into California communities, then you need to make sure that you are calling your assembly member and you are calling your senator and saying pass ACA 1 so that we have the opportunity to vote on this. And together we will build 2024 and we will help to move California forward. Thank you, Assemblymember Aguiar-Curry.
Great vote, thank you. Well, it's starting to get warm and we need to probably move on because I have to go get a few more votes so we can get this over the threshold here. So I'm asking for all of you to support us. And as Assemblymember Ward said, call your assembly member, call your senator, make sure that they're following up and going to vote on this. I want to thank, I see quite a few of my counties here. I see Napa County representation, Yolo County, Sonoma County, many others, and I really appreciate them coming out and supporting us today. I also want to thank my team. Putting these together and working on these are very, very difficult. And Rita Durgan has really taken this to another level, and so I just wanted to address her because, you know, this doesn't happen alone, everyone. I might be the voice of this, but she's the one that's been behind the scenes to making sure we get it over. So listen, we have a long road to go to November 2024 ballot. With all your support, I know we can do this, and I'm very optimistic as we move forward. So thank you again. Thank you so much for attending today. And let's build 2024. Thank you.